This past Sunday, ESPN delivered its most watched WNBA game ever. Atlanta Dream, Indiana Fever averaged 2.6 million views with a peak of 4 million viewers.
2.6 million, 2.6 million, 2.5 million, 2.5 million, 2.5 million. And not one of the 2.5 million games have had either of Paige Bueckers or Angel Reese. Who, by the way, like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but Angel Reese is playing the best basketball of her career. She is the least relevant she's ever been. No one gives a shit anymore about Angel Reese. People really don't. And I know, I get it, like, if people want to clown her game, it's one thing, but like, she's actually been pretty good. She has been pretty good, so I'm not going to be out.
Atlanta Dream, Indiana Fever averaged 2.6 million viewers and hit a peak of 4 million viewers. That's up 178% versus last year's ESPN regular season average. WNBA on ESPN networks up 16% year over year. Caitlin Clark absolutely slaughtered.
4 million people at the peak. Watching a Sunday afternoon WNBA game between the Atlanta Dream and the Indiana Fever on a network that has been broadcasting this league for over 2 decades and never seen a number like this before in its entire history.
We just witnessed the most watched women's NBA game ever. Okay, the history of the women's NBA, 2.6 million people showed out to watch the Indiana Fever play the Atlanta Dream. What a crazy game here. 2.6 million people, guys. That is awesome. And this game was an overtime thriller. Indiana takes it away and gets the win here, 95-91. And look, what do you think's going to happen when you got Caitlin Clark out there, you got Kelsey Mitchell out there? These two are a dynamic duo, but it is just nuts. Like I said, 2.6 million people watch this basketball game. This is what we want to see. We need more eyes on the women's NBA, guys, because look, these games are fun to watch. They are exciting. You have some of the best women's athletes out there battling it out every single night almost out there on the court. You don't...
Not a finals game, not a gold medal game, a regular season matchup, and it just became the single most watched WNBA broadcast in ESPN's history, full stop. Let that sit for a second, because this is the kind of number that usually needs a playoff atmosphere, a rivalry storyline built up over weeks, or a marketing push from the network itself. This one just happened on a normal Sunday afternoon slot.
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, we know, faced Reese and the Atlanta Dream on Sunday, and the game averaged 2.6 million viewers for ESPN, making it the most watched WNBA game in cable television history. Not just a regular season game, not just an ESPN game, any WNBA game ever, cable, regular season, or playoffs. Wow. The audience peaked at a whopping 4 million viewers as the game went down to the wire and eventually reached overtime.
The average for the broadcast landed at 2.6 million viewers across the full game, which on its own would have been a massive number for this league even a few years ago. But averages don't tell the whole story, because averages smooth out the peaks and valleys of a broadcast, and the peak here is where things get almost hard to believe. At its highest point, the game pulled in 4 million viewers on ESPN alone.
A 4 million viewed peak. I don't think if I've seen that yet in a WNBA regular season matchup during the Caitlin Clark era. I'm not sure if it's occurred before, but in the Caitlin Clark era, a 4 million peak? Outside the All-Star game, I'm not sure if I've seen a number get that high as of yet. It is up 178% versus last year's ESPN regular season average, and WNBA on ESPN networks are up 16% year over year.
That's up 178% compared to last year's ESPN regular season average for this league. Not up 10%, not up 30%, up 178%, which is the kind of jump that usually shows up in a press release about a completely different sport. Not a single Sunday afternoon broadcast in year 3 of a rating surge. Nobody in the league office quite wants to say out loud who's driving it.
I went back and watched the Indiana versus Atlanta game, and I just noticed something crazy. As you can see with the A at the half-court line, this is an Atlanta Dream home game. But look at all this red in the crowd. These are all Indiana Fever fans. Here's another angle of the court. This is the other side of the court. Look at all this red. I'm like, damn, who the Indiana Fever have motion like that? Their crowd is literally taking over away gyms. I then did some more digging, and it made perfect sense. It says WNBA teams move their home games against Caitlin Clark to bigger NBA gyms. Let me ask y'all a question. Have we ever seen this type of treatment in the WNBA before? Me personally, I have not. This is literally a superstar, man. Magic Johnson said it himself. He said a superstar is somebody that can go on the road and sell out the building.
So here's the actual number that should stop you cold. 14 million. That's the peak total audience across every network simultaneously carrying pieces of this game or its window: ESPN, ESPN2, TNT, USA, and NBA TV combined. 14 million people at one single moment had some version of Fever versus Dream on their screen. That makes it not just the most watched WNBA broadcast on ESPN ever, but the most watched WNBA game on cable television, period, in the history of the league. Cable television, not streaming, not a one-off viral clip online. Actual linear cable numbers, the kind networks build entire ad sales departments around, and this game beat every single one of them.
And lately, when Indiana has needed her the most, Clark has delivered. Another road victory, as I mentioned, Sunday in Atlanta. Another game where she's controlling the offense. So here's my MVP question. Take Caitlin Clark off the Indiana Fever. What are they? What are they? That's what value means to me. I'm not voting for Caitlin Clark because she's the biggest star in women's basketball. No, I'm not voting for her because she sells tickets. I'm not voting for her because millions of people tune in to watch her. She's appointment viewing. No, that's not why I would vote for her. I'm voting for her for what she does on the basketball court. Asia Wilson might have better stats, but MVP doesn't stand for best statistical resume. It stands for most valuable player. And if Caitlin Clark keeps playing like this, if Indiana keeps winning like this, then I have one question for everybody who says she is not the MVP. What else does Caitlin Clark have to do? Please tell me. Please fill me in.
And you already know who was on the floor. You already know who the cameras kept cutting to every single time the ball touched her hands. This is the same story that's been playing out for 3 years now, and at this point it's not really a mystery, it's a pattern with a name attached to it, whether the league wants to say the name out loud or not.
She joined a very group of skilled individuals when it comes to basketball for having over 40 points and 10 assists, and these are the only people in women's and men's basketball to ever do it. And notice how you only see one woman, and that's Caitlin. And guess who you see right here to this side of her? The greatest man to ever do it. The greatest man to ever do it. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, man, 6-time champion, man. Caitlin Clark is the women's version of this man right here, Michael Jordan.
Because here's the thing, nobody in a suit at league headquarters wants to put in an official statement, but every single broadcaster, every ad buyer, and every network executive already knows in their bones. Caitlin Clark is the needle. That's the actual industry term for it. The player whose presence alone moves a ratings number up or down, regardless of who else is on the floor or how good the rest of the matchup looks on paper. She's the face of the league in every measurable sense that matters to a television network. Ticket prices move when she's in the building. Ratings move when she's on the floor. Merchandise sales move when her jersey's in stock. And yet you'll search for a long time before you find a league press release that says her name specifically as the reason any of this is happening.
The 12 largest WNBA audience since 2000 have occurred in the past 3 seasons, each involving Caitlin Clark. One more time. The 12 largest WNBA audience since 2000 have occurred in the past 3 seasons, each involving Caitlin Clark. 9 Fever games, her 2 appearances in the All-Star game, and the 2024 WNBA draft. 2 All-Star game appearances, because the one that she didn't play, nobody gave a rat's behind.
Look at the actual list, because the list does the arguing for you better than any commentator could. Of the 12 largest WNBA audiences ever recorded since the year 2000, every single one of them happened in the last 3 seasons, not spread out across 2 decades of the league's existence. All 12 packed into a 3-year window that lines up exactly with one player's arrival. 9 of those 12 are Indiana Fever games, 2 are her All-Star appearances, and 1 is the 2024 WNBA draft, an event where the biggest thing happening on stage was a name being read out loud and a hug with the commissioner, a draft, outperforming actual playoff basketball from every other era of this league's history, outperforming finals broadcasts from years when the league had no shortage of star power on the floor.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
Think about how strange that actually is for a second. The single act of picking a rookie in a draft before she had played a single professional minute drew a bigger audience than championship games from prior decades. That's not a fluke of scheduling or a lucky Sunday afternoon slot. That's 20-some years of WNBA broadcast history getting rewritten by one specific person showing up, and the pattern hasn't slowed down since. If anything, it's accelerated, because now it's not just her draft or her rookie season curiosity driving the number, it's people who tuned in once out of curiosity and stayed because the on-court product with her running it is genuinely good basketball worth coming back to.
Caitlin Clark is the literal definition of when black people say, oh, we've got to do twice as much to even get half of the recognition, half of what we deserve. That's Caitlin Clark. It doesn't matter what Caitlin Clark does in this A'ja Wilson era. It doesn't matter that she's the fastest person in WNBA or NBA history to put up 700 assists in the fewest amount of games. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that she literally is the definition of an MVP. She is the most valuable player in the WNBA. Not even just on her team, not even just with the franchise. Caitlin Clark is the most valuable player in sports right now. Fuck the WNBA. Do you think anybody would give a damn about the antics off the court with the WNBA if it didn't have Caitlin Clark's name attached to it? No. Do you think anybody would even care about the subpar quality of the skill set some of those players display if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark? The fact that they're even ESPN analysts regulated to talking about the WNBA is because of...
And this is where the story gets a little uncomfortable, because you'd expect an organization sitting on numbers like these to be shouting about it from every rooftop they can find. Instead, watch how carefully league officials and even some broadcasters tend to phrase things whenever this subject comes up in a press setting. It's always a confluence of factors. It's always the growth of the league as a whole. It's always some version of crediting the collective, spreading the praise evenly across a roster of players who, to be fair, are all talented in their own right. But spreading credit evenly across a whole roster doesn't match what the actual data says when you isolate the games she plays in versus the games she doesn't.
Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA to be down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion, but not like this. This news is alarming for the league, and it's alarming for the league because this is such a crucial year for the WNBA.
Because we've actually seen this tested in real time, not hypothetically. Every stretch this season and last where Clark has missed games with an injury, the numbers dropped, and they didn't drop a little. Attendance dipped noticeably in arenas that had been selling out on the strength of her appearance. Broadcast ratings for those same matchups fell back toward the kind of pre-2024 numbers this league was used to seeing before she arrived. That's not a coincidence you can wave away with a general statement about league growth. That's a controlled experiment the league basically ran on itself without meaning to, and the results keep coming back the same way every single time she's out of the lineup.
Did you notice how the NBA could have brought in anybody they wanted, but they chose to bring in Caitlin Clark to talk about the future of the WNBA? And this was before the CBA was even signed. Then guess what? They chose to bring her back as soon as everything was finalized so she could break it down for us. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know. They chose her to be the face of the league. She's not just an elite player. She's intelligent, articulate, humble, and she's team-oriented. She truly understands the game of basketball. I mean, they could have chose anybody they wanted to. They could have chose A'ja Wilson. They could have chose Kelsey Plum or Angel Reese. It's really easy to see. Anybody can see why they chose Caitlin Clark to be the face of the league.
And to her credit, Clark herself almost never leans into any of this publicly. Ask her directly about being the reason ratings are up, and she'll usually redirect the conversation toward her teammates, toward the other stars she's sharing a floor with, toward the idea that the whole league is rising together, and she's just one piece of a bigger wave. That's the humble answer, and it's probably the answer her media team wants her giving, but it doesn't actually match what the broadcast numbers are telling anyone willing to look at them honestly. She can say it's a team effort all she wants. The scoreboard for viewership doesn't know how to be humble, it just counts eyeballs, and right now it keeps counting them by the millions, specifically on the nights she's the one bringing the ball up the floor. Crediting one player too loudly risks alienating the rest of the roster, risks making it sound like the other stars in this league, plenty of whom are genuinely great players in their own right, are somehow riding coattails rather than contributing to the product on their own merits.
Look at this. All them empty seats. Empty. That's Las Vegas versus Chicago, by the way. And this is why I don't even go back and forth with all the Caitlin Clark haters that can't even at least admit that she is the face of the league. The people that they try to say is bigger than Caitlin or more popular or the face of the league, they can't even sell out their own arena. Let y'all tell it, Angel Wilson is the face of the league. How? She can't even sell out half of her arena. Half. And she was playing against another girl team that, let y'all tell it, we wouldn't know who Caitlin was if it wasn't for her. She can't sell out hers either. And they're the smart.
Nobody wants to be the executive who publicly says one player is carrying this league, even if the data is sitting right there saying exactly that in numbers, nobody can spin their way around. It's a delicate needle to thread, no pun intended, between honoring what the numbers actually show and not making 12 other roster spots on every team feel like background noise in someone else's story. But there's a second, less comfortable layer underneath the optics problem, and it's the same layer that's been simmering under this entire season's worth of officiating controversies, hard fouls that don't get whistled, and locker room comments from other players about targeting. Because if the league fully leans into, it means officiating around her specifically gets scrutinized in a way the league hasn't fully committed to yet. It means the conversation around player pay, a conversation that's already been heating up across the league, gets impossible to separate from the fact that one specific player's presence is generating the kind of broadcast revenue that funds the entire pay structure everyone's negotiating over.
The Indiana Fever announced about an hour before tip-off yesterday that the face of the team, the face of the league, Caitlin Clark, was not playing yesterday for load management reasons. All right? The arena was then half empty because they robbed all those fans of watching the one person they want to see play. There's video that's not edited at all. That is video. That is a building that has been sold out every game that Caitlin Clark has played. They decided an hour before the game to hold her back for load management reasons without telling anybody till an hour before tip-off. Nobody went to the game. How dumb can you be? The WNBA, they're dying to be the NBA. They're begging to be like the NBA players.
But that's not why.
It's like, you guys have accomplished nothing at all. You're irrelevant in the sports world in this country. And every time you have a chance to maybe hang on to a little extra attention, you embarrass yourselves with stupidity like benching Caitlin Clark.
That's the piece that makes this whole situation so strange to watch play out in real time. The players themselves, in interviews and podcast appearances over the past year, have been far more willing to say the quiet part out loud than the league office has. Several veterans across different teams have openly acknowledged that Clark's arrival changed the financial ceiling for everyone in the league, that the media rights deal the WNBA just signed, the expansion into new markets, the corporate sponsorship dollars flowing in that weren't there 3 years ago, all of it traces back through her presence in some meaningful way. And yet the official league messaging keeps landing on collective growth language that technically isn't wrong. The league has genuinely grown across multiple fronts: new franchises, bigger arenas, better production values on broadcasts. But that framing conveniently season game is not a small event in the television industry right now, especially in an era where live sports is basically the last reliably DVR-proof category left on cable. Networks are paying real money for rights deals based on exactly this kind of audience data, and every single ad buyer negotiating a spot during a Fever broadcast this season knows precisely why that inventory got more expensive than it was 2 years ago.
No other WNBA player can garner this level of attention, this level of fans at once, moving arenas, guys. Fans are already lining up out the door to get their autographs. Local areas and businesses are making a killing when it comes to merchandise. You guys already know how the Caitlin Clark effect operates, man. It's nothing new here. It just speaks to, again, guys, the greatness of Caitlin Clark. Shout out to all the superb talent in this league. But they just don't do what Caitlin Clark does, and this is exactly why we continuously are having this conversation. I can't list any significant star player right now on the Toronto Tumbos. Maybe this game, because of who's coming into town, I'll then identify who are the stars. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. You don't know half these players in the league, majority of these players in the league, until you see them face off against you know who. Then they make a name for themselves. Then they become popular. Then they get brand deals. You see how the Caitlin Clark effect really works when it's all said and done.
The market has already priced in the Clark effect, whether the league wants to say the phrase publicly or not. Madison Avenue doesn't need a press release to see a number 178% higher than last year's average and connect the obvious dots. Ad rates for Fever broadcasts have reportedly climbed well past what comparable slots commanded before her arrival, and that kind of shift doesn't happen because of vague, league-wide momentum. It happens because buyers know exactly which games are going to deliver the eyeballs they're paying for. And this isn't really a new phenomenon in sports television history either, even if the specifics of a women's league catching this kind of wave feel unprecedented for the WNBA specifically. Every sport eventually gets a player who becomes bigger than the league's own institutional branding for a stretch of time, someone whose individual pull on a broadcast outweighs the matchup, the standings, the stakes of the game itself. Golf had this moment. Tennis has had it more than once. Even other American leagues have had individual stars whose presence alone moved a broadcast schedule around.
Usually play. Courtside seats are available this June 19th for $450, with tickets going as low as $9. And when Caitlin Clark comes to town, they are moving them to T-Mobile Arena, where the Knights play, where Rihanna plays, where all of the biggest stars in the world hold concerts. The cheapest ticket goes from $9 to $55. The most expensive goes from $680 to $10,000. And the game is until July 2nd, and the only seats left are those down there in the corner. And how much do those tickets go for? Those seats in the corner now go for $5,800, which means they go from $900 this week to over $10,000 when Caitlin Clark's.
What's different here is the speed of it, and the size of the gap between the player's individual drawing power and the league's willingness to publicly frame the story that way. Most leagues in that situation eventually lean into it hard, building entire marketing campaigns around the one player everyone's tuning in for, scheduling their biggest broadcast windows specifically around that player's games, front-loading national coverage toward whichever team she's on. The WNBA has done some of this quietly behind the scenes, scheduling more fever games in premium windows, no doubt, but has mostly avoided doing it in any sustained, explicit, publicly acknowledged way, even as the ratings keep handing them the exact argument they'd need to justify doing it loudly. Meanwhile, Clark just keeps playing. She doesn't control the marketing decisions, doesn't control how the league frames her impact in official communications, doesn't control whether a broadcast graphic mentions her name specifically or just shows a generic record ratings banner across the bottom of the screen. What she controls is what happens on the floor, and on the floor, the results keep matching the ratings story beat for beat.
Caitlin Clark, the one that stirs the drink. That is the WNBA, the face of the league, no doubt about it. The WNBA, they may not want to promote her. Ion might not want to promote her. NBC may not want to promote her. ESPN may not want to promote her. USA Sports may not want to promote her. But the fans have spoken, and they seem to know whether you guys want to promote her or not. They seem to know when Caitlin Clark's playing, what time, and where.
Deep threes that pull people out of their seats before the ball even goes through the net. No-look passes that end up as SportsCenter's top play, regardless of what else happened around the league that night. A competitive fire that occasionally draws technical fouls and plenty of controversy, but also draws exactly the kind of drama that makes casual viewers stay tuned instead of flipping the channel at halftime. Love her or find her frustrating to watch when she's chirping at officials, either reaction keeps a remote control in someone's hand instead of switching to something else. At some point, the numbers stop being something a league can quietly manage around and start being something it has to one specific person on the floor driving it. The WNBA can keep choosing its words carefully in press conferences all it wants, keep using phrases like collective growth and a confluence of factors every time a reporter asks the obvious follow-up question. But the broadcast data has already made the argument for them, loudly, repeatedly, week after week, and it doesn't look like it's planning on quieting down anytime soon. Every record this league sets from here on out is going to get measured against the same 3-year window, and right now, every single record in that window has her fingerprints on it.